Welcome to the Lead Generation Strategies podcast. I'm your host, Joey Myers. This podcast is brought to you by Lead Generation SEO Services.com, and that's an S at the end of services, and Enfuego Media. We get clients, more customers, patients, clients by creating multimedia content using a mix of AI, artificial intelligence, software automation, fantastic writers, and then distribute that content to over 400 partnership sites, over 200 of those being media sites like Fox, ABC, and NBC affiliates. Traffic and rankings can be seen within 48 hours after publishing. So today I want to welcome Mr. Simon Chan. He is the author of the new book, The Consistency Pill, the 7-step system to increase sales and transform your business. And what's most impressive, because I am an Amazon bestselling author myself in the baseball coaching niche, is his 146, I think he published June 2022, Simon? Yeah, this year in June, 146 Amazon reviews with an average rating of, get this, 4.8. So I've got combined two editions of my book, over 200 something reviews, but my 4.6. So he's on the, and this is just his first year. So Simon is based out of Los Angeles, California, or Los Angeles area, right, Simon?
Yes.
Yep. So thank you for joining us. Congrats on the new book and welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me here, Joey. It's an honor. I appreciate it. It's going to be fun.
Yep, you got it, dude. Well, hey, we're going to be talking consistency today. It's a little different in this podcast episode. Typically, I'll interview real estate professionals, maybe dental offices, owners, just business owners, e-com. You're a business owner, but this is an interview where I wanted to bring on an expert and today on consistency, on the practice of consistency, the mental side, the physical side, all that kind of thing, for those people that I typically tend to interview. So if those people are listening, say real estate agents or real estate owners, brokers, companies, that these tips and tricks and advice that Simon's going to share today will help with that. So Simon, share with everybody, give a little background about your business experience.
Yeah, I was born and raised shy, quiet Asian kid from Brooklyn, New York, and taught the traditional, very stereotypical Asian way: study hard, get a good job, and go be a doctor. My dad was kind of like a rags to riches. Grew up really poor in Hong Kong in the ghetto. Became a doctor, and I was always the richest kid in the public school. And but I never knew anything about business. I think my dad grew up five siblings in the tiny 2-bedroom, including him, total of 6 kids, in a tiny 2-bedroom house. Bottom was the hardware store, and he lived at the top. And I think he saw a lot of negative stuff, unethical stuff going on, whatever he saw. But he always pushed me like, don't do business, go get an education, right? Business people are bad, it's scammy. So I had that mindset. And so I studied, went to school, got a job. It was a great job. It was low paying, but I was happy. But I thought my life was going to be work 30 years and climb the corporate ladder, get a nice corner office, good perks. And then I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That totally changed my paradigm. I was like, I never knew that this is what businesses do. And I learned the concept of passive income, residual income. And that just blew my mind away. And so I just like, hey, I can't live my life anymore. I got to do this. Because my dad, we talked about baseball the last time we talked, right? I always grew up, my dream was to be a baseball player, play for the New York Yankees as a kid. But my dad never had much time. I love him. I'm grateful for what he did. He was always busy at his practice, clinic, but residual income. So money wasn't the goal. It was like having time freedom, right? Because that's what my dad didn't have. I think that's the life I want. I don't want to work in that corporate office anymore. So that got me looking for different businesses. I had no business experience, nothing. I was only an employee mindset. And so I got involved. To make a long story short, I got into direct selling, network marketing. Some people, there's a bad perception about it. But the more I researched about it, I realized, hey, there is just like an industry, there's a lot of good, there's also a lot of bad, right? And I looked at the good. And for me at that point, I didn't have much money. And I was in my 20s. And there's a good way for someone with no business experience to really learn sales and marketing and build a following, build an influence, learn to lead generation, and really grow a business. And eventually that can lead to other things. So basically I jumped in. I struggled. I had no success whatsoever. my turning point after a couple of months of struggle was I finally had a mentor that forced me to stay consistent. And once I started becoming consistent, the sales became a lot easier, reaching out. I mean, I always joke when I first started making a sales call, I was in my parents' house visiting them in New York. I would make the calls in like a tiny den because I didn't want my mom to listen to me making sales calls. And I would just go out there, go to the computer, grab a couple of numbers, run back. But eventually, consistency creates mastery, right? There's a saying, every master was a disaster. I was a total disaster. The key is to getting started. I started getting some results. And then back in 2004, because I moved to LA, I didn't know many. I'm not like a outgoing type of person. I didn't know many friends. And in network marketing, you need to have a lot of contacts, right? To go what we call leads. So I said, I'm not the person to go out to, social gatherings or be business networking functions or BNI or meetups to meet people. Why don't I start generating leads online? So that's how I got into online advertising, online marketing back in basically the mid 2004. That time doing Yahoo, actually started doing Overture before Yahoo bought them out, then Yahoo pay-per-click, then Google AdWords, AdSense, and then eventually built a 7-figure network marketing business using online advertising. And then in 2013, I had like a different purpose. I made a switch. I realized a lot of people in my niche actually asked me for help. And so I launched the second business. I still have a business that pays me a 6-figure residual, my network marketing business. And in 2013, I went full-time to launch what I currently do now. I'm a full-time coach for people in the direct selling profession.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Yeah. We share very similar backgrounds, but just different areas. One of them is baseball. We love baseball. We play baseball. Your oldest is a ringer, is turning out to be a ringer. And we had that conversation before we went on. And there's another podcast that I have on that, on hitting stuff. We aren't here for that today, but I was similar. Both my family worked 8 to 5. And we were probably more lower middle class, upper class later on, or middle class, mostly solid middle class. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was the same paradigm shift for me as well. So we have a very, very similar past there. What's interesting is you talk about the network marketing business, and everybody I'm sure has had some sort of a touch on that. Like you said, there's bad connotations and there's also good with it that people have to remember. And that was one of the things, a couple of the touches that I had with that was, how can I do this online? Like, how can I, instead of making all the phone calls or getting people on Facebook? I know you mentioned that in your book too. You had some, as a coach, you had some of these students that were learning from you and things like that. And they were asking about Facebook and it's not working. And then you talked about the consistency, which we'll get into. But what were some of the things? So you did ad spend. And where were you sending them? You were sending them to a landing page that was to get what?
Well, at that time in the early 2000s, there was a couple of authors, like Robert Kiyosaki was one of them. I thought about, who would be open to network marketing, right? Because most of my friends, I figured none of them want to do it. I mean, they joined to support me, but it's like the problem with network marketing, people end up talking to the same people. There's no leads, in other words. By the way, at that time, I didn't even know what a lead was. No idea what a lead. So what's a lead? So I found out because some people were buying leads. So what's buying? So buying leads, you're just buying names. And so I bought leads. I signed up a couple of leads, but they were terrible. They were all like enticed, right? So if you don't know what enticed means, these lead generation. I don't want to badmouth any lead generation companies, but at least the ones I experienced were, this person was interested in work at home. So I was like excited. Wow, this person's going to join. I call them up and they're like, what? Oh no, I just signed them up because I wanted the $25 Applebee coupon. What? So then I figured out, like, I see these ads online. Hey, you get a free meal on Applebee, and you click it and you fill out a survey. And if they ask you, do you want to refinance your home? Yes. Do you want to work from home, extra income? Yes. And all of a sudden, that person is a lead for a mortgage broker and also work at home, network marketer. So like, I just paid. Yeah, I paid $5 for that. And generally, there's a whole bunch of things like, get a new car loan, or whatever. So by the time I call them, like 5 other people have called them already. They're not even picking up my call. So I was like, wait, there's got to be a better way to generate leads, right? So thinking about, how did I get involved? I was like, well, if someone read Rich Dad Poor Dad with someone like you're definitely more open to doing something on the side. And network marketing gives you passive income, residual income. You'll be way more open if someone doesn't know the concept. So what I did was I target At that time, there's a couple authors like Robert Kiyosaki. He wrote a couple of books, Cash Flow Quadrant. Robert Allen wrote The Multiple Streams of Income. David Bach, Thomas Stanley wrote The Millionaire Next Door. I think if anyone read these books, they'll be probably open to doing something because they're into personal finance, right? And network marketing is a great way. So I started running AdWords where if someone did a search, and at that time, Robert G. Allen, who's a close friend and a great mentor of mine, we ended up working together later on, he wrote a great book of Multiple Streams of Income, which is like a New York Times bestseller. He also wrote the book 1 Minute Millionaire. So he was on radio shows, talk shows, everywhere. And every time he was on air, people would Google him. And then I will have an ad pop up. Hey, take a look at one passive income. It's the easiest way. And Robert Allen actually taught in his book, Multiple Streams of Income, talks about for the average person with no business experience, network marketing is a great way. So every time someone pops in these authors, my ad will pop up. I'll go to the landing page. And on the landing page, it was back then, this is early 2000s. You didn't even really need a lead. We did have a lead magnet. Some of them were so cheesy. Some of them were directly into like, you want to earn extra income, fill out the form and someone will contact you, right? Because I didn't even know what a lead magnet was. Right. So we just got phone numbers and at that time, people were willing to give phone numbers back then. So I'll call them. And then I remember, talk about what consistency creates mastery. And every master was a disaster. First time I did pay-per-click, I spent $100. I still remember the guy's name, Michael Lee from Houston. I'm so excited. Wow, I finally got my own lead. I finally, when I email inbox, finally one comes in. I spent $100, got one lead. I called the guy, say, hey, Michael, this is Simon following up with you. You were interested to work, earn an extra income stream from home. And the guy's like, I'm not interested anymore. Don't call me back. Hang up. Whoa, that was $100. But you know what? It's like every master is a disaster. It's like in sports. You stay in the batting cage, you hit, you eventually get good, right? I started taking courses, went to seminars. And then I spent $500, got 10 leads. So I was like, all right, now instead of like, $100 lead, a $50 lead. And eventually I got good enough where the leads were at most $3, sometimes like 25 cents. And I started building people, building a team like that.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I'm thinking about the realtors and things, because I was on a podcast. Typically realtors are they're more extroverts, not all of them, but they're more extroverts because they like to talk with people. They want to jump on the phone. It's more like yourself or myself. You want to get in front of somebody, but there are some. I was on a podcast where it was catering to real estate agents that were introverted. So one of the things, me coming on as the marketing guy and giving some advice, is what can introverted real estate agents do to get leads? And I know the ads thing isn't a big, some people don't have that extra money to be able to throw into ads now. It's like Google AdWords or Facebook or anything like that. You mentioned in a prior conversation, content, that you do a lot of content stuff in the content marketing business, basically. Yeah. What kind of advice would you have for those introverts that are salespeople, happen to be in a sales position, on the consistency side of things? Maybe top two as your advice for those type of folks.
Well, I just want to bring one thing. I just thought of something that maybe could apply to people who do real estate. So, because you have a lot of agents that listen to this, right? Yeah. So, if you start doing a search term like real estate, it's going to be a cost of whatever, $1 gazillion per click, right? But think about the people. Like, for example, I live in a high-end area in Los Angeles, right? If you sell houses in a high-end area, and this is exactly for network marketing. We're talking big dreamers. What do these big dreamers do? Right? People in my area, they're thinking of, what type of magazines or journals and stuff do they consume? Right? So for example, let me just share with network marketing. Big dreamers, they normally reading like the Robb Report about luxury yachts, $1 million homes, right? So Architectural Digest, they're reading these high-end magazines. So think about it. So for example, if you're selling a home in my area, people in my area are into that type of stuff, making the houses nice or buying big boats or whatever, right? You can, a lot of times, if you do a search term for real estate, it's going to cost a lot of money. But you just do a search term for like a Robb Report or a luxury yacht, the cost per click is probably way, way lower for those terms. And then you can target them, right? You can advertise them. Now, in terms of content, nowadays it's more important than ever. If anyone ever, like especially you're a stranger, no one knows about you, the first thing people do, they look you up online. Right. And if you don't have content online, you're almost like, I don't trust that person anymore, because it's like you have to put out content minimum. And so let me take you back a couple of years ago. And this is a couple of years. like I moved out to, I still had a passive income property in New Jersey, and I wanted to sell it because I wanted to actually use the money to buy something else in LA. So, but I'm in LA. I've been actually living in LA for 12, 13 years. I kind of don't have as many real estate contacts in the Jersey City area. So what I did, I just Googled, and there's a whole bunch of agents up there. But you know what? Who I chose? I found one guy. He's the only guy who had videos on talking about how to maximize your property in Jersey City. Whole bunch of instruction videos. Now, they weren't fancy. There wasn't a studio. It was just him probably in his living room sharing tips, quick 5-6 minute videos. And I watched 2 of them. I thought, all right, he didn't have the fancy website. This guy got me. I reached out to him and he sold my place, right? The advantage that he had over me is he had content. And I can tell that he knew what he was talking about. So today in 2022, you got to post content consistently, right? Think about whatever niche you have in. You can be the shyest person. You know a lot about, just you're a real estate agent, you're shy. You know a lot about the housing market in your area. Talk about that. Talk about, for example, right now, especially there's so much news of whatever's happening to the stock market. How's that affecting prices of homes? There's so many things to talk about, but it's the important thing is you have to create some type of content, share or teach. And, a lot of times we think content has got to be a dancing video, something funny, but just teach all you know. And well, you may say, well, I'm not an expert. Well, if you're not an expert, then why would someone buy your house? Right? You're selling yourself as an expert already. And here's another tip is, even if you're a new agent, you don't need to know much. You just need to know 5% more than the buyer. If the buyer finds some value, then they're going to buy from you. And it's putting that consistent content in there, because especially buying like a house, someone's not just going to see something and buy right away. Sometimes the sales process takes months or years of nurturing, right? So go out there and provide content over and over again. And it's about when it's about timing. When they need to sell the house, who will think of you? Right. I'll give you one more example with like offline content. And this was back in my other area in Torrance, my old house. There's a father and son. They're amazing. Every month they put a newsletter in my mailbox, right? And the newsletter is a 2-page newsletter, 1 page about maybe half a page about housing market. I think it was a 1-pager. Half a page about a housing market, a little blurb about the local high school sports teams, and then some fun fact, and then do a raffle. There were so many real estate agents that come, they drop the business cards, they do one newsletter, or they do a free cookie, and then they stop. But this person, for it was 5 years when I lived there, every single month dropped it. Well, if I'm going to sell my house, who am I going to think of? Right? So the content is really, really important, whether it's offline or online, especially these days. The content is really your social media profiles. That's your business card nowadays.
I agree. Yeah, great advice. And that's great for an introvert on just like that. If it's a mailer, and one of the agents down in LA, actually, that I had interviewed for the podcast, she owns her own company. She had one she had opened up a real estate firm in Florida as well. And she was carting people back and forth, people leaving California, going to Florida. And she was talking about that if people stop advertising on benches and billboards and things like that, it could either mean that they're not being effective, or that people are starting to shift over to another area, which is making that area more competitive, so that she's going to start putting some money into this other area, And that's one of the things that I noticed with mail-ins, newsletters that you're talking about, is a lot of people stopped doing it. There was a time in the 90s and maybe the 2000s where those mailings were going out a lot. We were getting tons of mail and just throwing stuff away, right? But I'm not getting, even today, not getting a ton of mail. It's just from normal credit card stuff, whatever's coming through. So that's great advice for an introvert. And the real estate agents around here, I might get maybe about 4 in a month from different agents, but it's not consistent. And so, which brings me to consistency, right? In your book, if we're looking at the failure, so a lot of people, you've talked about in your book, one of the biggest things that they don't want to call on a lead, or they don't want to, they don't want to call on a lead. If it's calling on a lead or emailing them, whatever, they're afraid of the no, right? The no saying. So what are you have a few, your book is filled with all kinds of great stuff, tons of information, but maybe top 2 or 3 people that are like that, maybe introverts that are dealing with trying to, procrastinating, trying to call on leads. So the failure perspective.
Yeah. With anything, I talk about in my book, in the consistency system, you need to have a checklist, component number 1. And number 2 is you got to create and schedule the time. create a routine.
Mhm.
So whether it's creating social media content or you are following up with prospects, have a routine. You got to have that plan. So generally, the important things that require more courage, more creativity is when we have high energy. We have good energy, we need to do that. When we're tired, it's like the resistance, the willpower is just not there, right? That's what most people do online shopping or buy junk at night because they have no willpower, or they eat junk food at night. There's no willpower. So do it in the morning, whatever time you are when you're fresh. So I do all my content in the morning or after I wake up and I take a nap. I take a morning nap. Once I wake up, I do my most important thing, and often that's always sales and marketing. So getting back to, if you're afraid of what people are, you're not consistent with your follow-ups. Number one is the first thing before you do anything, and you know this coming from sports, is you got to visualize, right? If you're visualizing, oh man, this guy's throwing 95, he's going to strike me out, you're automatically, you lost the battle, right? You got to visualize hitting the ball. You got to visualize making that sale. Think back to a previous sale, think back to a previous success you've had, and that gives you confidence because you're thinking, the reason why you're procrastinating, you're automatically assuming rejection. Right? And that is totally a fiction. It's not fact.
Right.
Now so assume that they're going to buy. Assume they're going to buy. Now that is also fiction. But if you're going to assume something that's not true, you might as well assume positive because positivity doesn't guarantee success, but negativity guarantees failure. Right? If you could say, "Oh, I'm not sure this person's going to buy," and you actually reach out to them, your excitement is not there. Your confidence is not there. So first of all, close your eyes. Just visualize yourself. That person will buy because people do buy houses. Right? That's the fact. People buy houses all the time. They buy. And think back to your previous sale you had. Maybe capture a moment, change the environment, play a music that inspires you, right? I used to talk about the environment, the music. Before I speak, I play the same song over and over again. I play AC/DC, Thunderstruck. That just fires me up. Even before the show, I'm fired up, right? So, and by the way, like I've done over 10,000 speaking engagements. I still get nervous. So before we got on, Joey was like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? But I play AC/DC, Thunderstruck, and now I'm fired up, right? So put yourself in that mental and physical state where you feel good, and then assume they're going to buy, right? And then if they say no, it's like it's their loss, right? There's a couple of things. Number one, they're not saying no to you. They're just the timing is not right. A no doesn't mean never. It's just not the right time. Go and use that social media, right? Because ultimately, if the timing is not right, ultimately we're humans, we're emotional, and people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? That's where it comes in. Know, like, and trust. So I use social media, post stuff that let people know about your kids, let people know about your family. It's not just business, because people don't want that, right? People buy, if it's just about houses, they'll buy from any agent. But why do certain people buy from certain people? Because they have a connection with you. So that's why social media is such a valuable tool. Like if you have a certain thing you like I post a lot about baseball. All my followers, right? They all know I'm into baseball. Right? Let people, and I do a lot of baseball, my boys, let people know about these small little things about you because it's the small things that allow people to connect with you. Right? And talk about consistency. My real estate agent now is awesome. I've been working with her for like 5-6 years. She's been wanting to follow, keep following up with me to buy a house for 5-6 years. I still haven't bought a house, but you know what she does? She is the ultimate consistent networker. Every Chinese holiday, she brings me some type of dessert. Every birthday, she brings me a cake. And I just told my son that, she's the ultimate networker. She's always following up. She's, if I ever think about a house, I can't think of anyone. I just think of Didi because she is always there.
That's great. Yeah. Great advice for the realtor, especially because their business, I mean, they're getting big paychecks a lot, and some in areas they're getting big paychecks like LA and San Diego and the luxury market and things like that. And so it's worth the time and energy to put into that and be consistent about that. And like you said, having a checklist of these people and making those kind of the Chinese New Year, birthdays, kids' birthdays, those kind of thing, and dropping in doesn't even have to be a lot. It could be just a card, sending a card out and things like that. I think the jewelry company that I bought my wife's ring when we got married 15 years ago, they send me every anniversary, a week before, hey, your anniversary's coming up, congratulations, hey, here's 40% off or whatever. So that's great advice. I wanted to talk about one thing that I really liked in your book that you were talking about. We call it the King's Rule. So when you're talking with these people, or the mindset and the visualization is, you have to approach it from a perspective of you have a service or a product that is really good and that can really benefit this person, assuming you're not trying to swindle them or grift them or anything like that, but you have a product or service that's really good for them and it could really help them either return on investment or it can help them get a scholarship or whatever it is, to go into it like, not that I have to get this, like a very desperate type of mindset, but more of, it's their loss if they say no to it. And that might to some seem like a mean thing, but you're not saying that to them. That's just your mindset, is if they say no, then that's their loss. I'm going to go to the next person. So talk a little bit about that. We call it the king rule, but you have a good little description of it in your book.
Yeah. It's like, you don't need them, but they need you because you are unique. There's like, for example, Joey, there's only one and only Joey Meyer. Right now. So if I turn down the opportunity to work with you, it's actually my loss because I missed out on working with you right now. But if I'd said it's not your loss though, because there's millions of people you can work with, right? So if you're a real estate agent listening to this, someone says no to you, doesn't matter. It's their loss because they missed out on the chance to work with you while you can go out there. Let's find so many buyers out there. Now, if you feel that, oh, well, I'm not that special, then you got to work on yourself internally. What are some additional services, additional things that you can provide that makes you stand out? So you're not a commodity. You're just not another agent, right? That's something you got to work on your personal brand. And that's, again, the social media content, all that stuff stands out. Going back to my agent, she makes my family feel good on all the holidays, all the special dates. That's her special thing, right? So it's, you are unique. If they say no, they're not rejecting you. It's their loss and not yours. And you don't need them, but they need you because there's only one and only you.
Great. Yeah. I love that. And one last thing before we kind of let people know to get a little bit more information about you. One of the other agents, a good friend of mine, he's local, and he was talking about this marketing. He owns his own company. Him and his wife own their own company, real estate company. And they talk about this when they're putting their stuff out there on Facebook, because mostly they're on Facebook. I think they do a little Instagram and stuff like that, is they show people, like you said, baseball, like in your Facebook and your social media, they see a lot of baseball. So your prospective clients, customers are going to see that. And that's something that's going to connect you guys. And he talks about the same thing whether it's baseball or whether they're working out because they're big fitness aficionados, right? Different things like that. And sometimes people are scared to put it out there. And it could be something as, well, I like wine, it's maybe I'm not a lush, but I like the taste of it. And that's something that I would put out, but I'm afraid I don't want people to think I'm an alcoholic, things like that. And so sometimes they're afraid that they're going to lose a sale, lose a prospective customer because of what they put out there about themselves. What's your advice for those kind of people?
The more you repel, the more you attract. So, before people do one-on-one coaching with me, I have them go out and fill out an online application. And then after look at the application, I decide whether I want to interview them. And then the second step, I actually interview them. And one of the questions I ask them is, why me? Because in my niche, there's so many great trainers out there. Why me? And generally, I would say a third of the, and it's never back. Your training is the best. That's probably 5%, 3%. Most of it is because I like your style, right? Because again, that comes. How do they know my style? Because of all the content I put out there, my videos, my reels, right? My YouTube and my podcast. And number two is because your faith. Okay, I post, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I post it everywhere. John 3:16 on every website. I talk about it every Sunday. I post about God. And then because you're a family man, you spend time with your kids doing baseball, right? That's what the main answer is, because ultimately it goes back to what I said. People buy from they know, like, and trust. Right. So if you like wine, that's awesome. Post that about, because yes, you will lose some people, but there's a whole huge tribe. And I know there's millions and millions and millions of people who drink wine, including myself, love wine, who say, wow, you're cool because you like wine more than beer. I like that. I like that person. But that's humans, right? We buy from people who know, like, and trust. And it's these small things that get people like, why should I have this person sell my house instead of that? Because I like them better. Because it's about relatable. You become, instead of just a commodity, you become a relatable human being, someone that people want to have a relationship with.
Love that. Yeah. And I think faith is the big one. I think some people have a hard time with the environment that we're in to put their faith out there and be bold and be okay with that, and I'm the same. I love Jesus. Just saw I don't know if you saw The Chosen, the show The Chosen with
no, not yet. I heard about it.
Okay, check it out. But yeah, I think people are just scared to put that out there, whether they're Muslim or Buddhist or whatever. You rarely hear that from people, and I think they're just afraid to repel. But that's great.
Let me share something with you, right?
Yeah.
Like this was a couple of years ago because I initially felt like that way. Like if I put my faith, I'm going to lose all these people who are agnostic or not faith. My business doubled after I posted John 3:16 at the bottom. Because yes, I lost people, but all the ones who are like, "Oh, Simon, thank you so much for speaking up." You become like I didn't intend to. I became like a hero. So wow, finally somebody in our niche that's speaking up, that's bold about the faith. So yeah, you will lose people, but those are the people who are probably not your type of person, that type of prospect either, because they're not similar to you, right? Who's the best lead? Who's the best? Is someone that's similar to you, that can relate to you, that you relate to them and they relate to you and they know you and they like you. That's the best lead you can generate.
I agree. Very cool. Well, Simon, tell people where they can find you. If it's website, social media. I mentioned the book. You can mention the book. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me on social media on Instagram or Facebook as Simon W. Chan. And or you can just go to consistencypill.com.
Very cool. Let me do a basic just outro here. So if you like this podcast episode, by the way, everybody listening, this is probably the first one that I did this. I learned this from a couple other podcasts at the end to actually ask you to like, review, and or share this podcast. We really appreciate the feedback. If you're interested in hearing more about our multimedia marketing events that I mentioned earlier at the beginning, then please visit leadgenerationseoservices.com and click on the marketing events link in the navigation bar to watch about a 3 to 4 minute video overview, give you a good idea on those. So Mr. Simon Chan, you are the author of the new book, The Consistency Pill. And I urge you all to go out there on Amazon or any other place where you can find it, the 7-step system to increase sales and transform your business. And Simon, thanks again for your time here today. I know you're a busy guy, so wanted to get you, be respectful of your time.
Thanks for having me, Joey. It was a ton of fun.
Thank you, sir. All right, stay on.